Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. My employer, Mr. Moncrief, has requested that I convey to you information concerning certain arrangements regarding this evening's performance. Firstly, please adjust the volume on any portable telephone apparatus upon your person. There was a highly regrettable incident last season. Lady Bracknell was somewhat rudely interrupted whilst giving instruction. The young gentleman concerned was, we understand, last seen at Southampton docks, embarking to join the French Foreign Legion. As a courtesy to the actors, the same injunction applies to any photography employing a magnesium flash for illumination. For your safety and well-being, the exits from the auditorium are, as you see, indicated. This evening's performance will be in 3 acts. At the end of Act 1, there will be a 20-minute intermission, during which time the bar in the foyer will be open. For those of you with sufficient prescience to have pre-ordered drinks from the London bar, you may collect your beverages in the outer foyer at that time. There will be a brief 5-minute intermission between Acts 2 and 3, sufficient for the stretching of legs and to attend to calls of a personal nature. Thank you.
I'm sorry for that, but for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. So far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut ready for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
By the way, Lane, I see from your book that last Thursday night, when Lord Shoreham and Mr. Worthing dined with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that in a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married quarters, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as all that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I have only been married once, that owing to a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm very much interested in your family life, Lane.
Oh, no, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural indeed, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders can't set us a good example, then what on earth is the point in them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, Ernest, my dear fellow? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating again as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock, but where have you been since last Thursday evening?
In the country.
Oh, what on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is dreadfully boring.
Who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors. Neighbors.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to a one of them.
No, how immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Why, yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why these cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, well, that's as may be, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
Why on earth do you say that?
My dear fellow, the way that you flirt with her is perfectly disgraceful. And it's almost as bad as the way she flirts with you.
Well, how utterly unromantic you are. I am in love with Gwendolen, and I have come to town with the express purpose of proposing to her.
I thought you said you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
As I said, how utterly unromantic you are.
Oh, I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing at all romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may even be accepted. One usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is all gone. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear boy. The divorce courts were especially created for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Ah, there can be no speculation on that subject. Divorce was made in heaven. Look, please, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're prepared specially for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them all the time.
But that is an entirely different matter. She is my aunt.
Well, you needn't eat them all like that.
You can have the bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen.
Quite good bread and butter it is, too.
Yes, but my dear fellow, you need not eat it as if you are going to eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth would you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Well, that is a lot of nonsense.
No, it isn't. It's a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Well, my dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean by Cecily, Algy? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily. What do you mean by that?
Bring me the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here, please, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you've had it all this time? I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a very large reward.
Well, I do wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up at the moment.
It is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
Oh, I do think that's rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no difference, because now that I read the inscription inside, I see that the thing is not yours after all.
Of course it is mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you have no right to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to do, to read what is inside a private cigarette case.
Oh, it's perfectly absurd to have hard and fast rules about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends upon what one shouldn't read.
I do not wish to discuss modern culture. It is not the sort of thing one discusses in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you just said that you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming little old woman she is, too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Now, just give it back to me, Algy.
Now, if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells, why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
Well, my dear Algy, what is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. Surely that is something that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that all aunts should be just like your aunt, and that is absurd. Now just give it back to me.
Yes, but why then does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Now, there can be no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. And besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
But you always told me your name was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You even look as though your name is Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking fellow I have ever met in my life. It is perfectly absurd you saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your card. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, apartment B4 the Albany, Piccadilly, London. I shall keep this as a proof that your name is Ernest if ever you attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolen, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and it was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you'd much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algy, you speak exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one is not a dentist. It produces a false impression.
And that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, come on, tell me the whole thing. And I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist.
A Bunburyist? What on earth is a Bunburyist?
I will reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are so kind as to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear boy, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a young boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle for reasons of respect which you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Yes, where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you quite candidly that it is not in Shropshire.
Yes, I thought as much. I have Bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, come on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, I don't know if you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a very high moral tone on all things. It is one's duty to do so. And, seeing as a high moral tone does not add to one's health nor happiness, I have invented a younger brother who goes by the name of Ernest and lives at my place at the Albany. That way, whenever I want to get up to town, I can do so, and he gets into the most dreadful scrapes. And that, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, the truth is very rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it was either. And modern literature a complete impossibility.
Oh, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all.
Oh, literary criticism is not your forte, dear fellow. Please don't try it. It is far better to leave it to those who haven't been at university. They do it so well in the daily papers. No, what you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. You are the most advanced Bunburyist I have ever met.
What on earth do you mean by that?
Well, you have invented a useful younger brother named Earnest, in order that you may come up to town whenever you wish. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may go down to the country whenever I choose. A Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary ill health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for over a week.
I haven't invited you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
I really think you should dine with your Aunt Augusta this evening.
Oh, I haven't the smallest intent of doing anything of the sort. To begin with, on Monday I dined there already, and once a week is quite often enough to dine with one's own relations. And in the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family, and either sent down with no woman at all, or two. And in the third place, I know perfectly well who shall sit me next to tonight. She'll sit me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. It is not very pleasant. Indeed, it's not even decent. And that sort of thing is extraordinarily on the increase. The amount of women in London these days that flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's simply washing their clean linen in public. And besides, now I know you to be a Bunburyist, naturally I want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a Bunburyist at all. As a matter of fact, I have been thinking of killing off my poor brother Ernest. I think that I shall kill him off in any case. Cecily is becoming a little too interested in him, and it's all becoming rather a bore. And I would advise that you do the same thing with with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
No, nothing would induce me to part with Bunbury, and if ever you were to get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you would do very well to know Bunbury too. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If Gwendolyn accepts me, and she is the only girl that I have ever met who I would marry, then I certainly wouldn't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. What you don't seem to realise, my dear fellow, is that in married life, 3 is company, and 2 is none.
My dear Algy, that is nonsense. It is also the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and the happy English home is proven in half the time.
What nonsense. You are just being cynical. It is so easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. That'll be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ring in that Wagnerian manner. By the way, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes so that you can propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose, if you want.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people that are not serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Well, good afternoon, Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's hardly the same thing. In fact, the two very rarely go together.
Oh, dear me. You are smart.
I am always smart, am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments. And I intend to develop directions.
I'm so sorry we're a little late, Algernon. I felt obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't been there since her husband died. I never saw a woman so changed. Why, she looks quite 20 years younger. Now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit by me?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lane, why are there no cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumbers at the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Aunt Augusta, I'm greatly distressed about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It is no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with dear Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure these days.
Yes, I hear that her hair has turned quite golden from grief.
But it has certainly changed colour. I, of course, cannot say from what cause. Thank you. I have a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. Such a lovely woman and so attentive to her husband. It's a delight to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight.
Oh, I do hope not, Algernon. You'll put my table completely out. Your poor uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great ball, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment. But the fact is, I've just received a telegram concerning my poor friend Bunbury. They seem to think that he's very ill again, and that I should be with him.
I must say, Algernon, it's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury does seem to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, I wish he'd make up his mind whether he's going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is really quite absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of this modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Ill health is hardly something that should be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle. Not that he takes very much notice, not where his particular ailment is concerned, at any rate. But I would be very pleased, Algernon, if you would please give Mr. Bunbury a message from me, asking him not to have a relapse on Saturday, as I would like on you to arrange my music for me. It's my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation at the end of the season, when everybody has said practically everything they had to say, which in most cases isn't very much.
I will speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. But I think I can reassure you that he'll be okay by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, nobody listens, and if one plays bad music, nobody talks. But I'll run over the programme I've drawn up. If you'll kindly come through to the next room for a moment.
It's very kind of you, Algernon. Very thoughtful indeed, and I'm sure it will be a wonderful programme after a few expurgations. But French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think them improper, and they either look shocked, which is vulgar, or they laugh, which is worse. However, German seems to me to be a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe it is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else, Miss Fairfax.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence, if I may.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, I have admired you more than any other girl that I have ever met since, well, since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that, in public at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always held an irresistible fascination, Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines, and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love a man of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
Gwendolyn, do you really love me?
Passionately.
Oh, my darling. You don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name were something else.
But your name is Earnest.
Well, yes, I know it is, but, well, supposing it was something else. Do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And, like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life, as we know them.
Well, to be perfectly candid with you, darling, I don't think that the name Earnest suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Oh, really, Gwendolyn? I mean, I think that there are plenty of other very nice names. The name Jack, for instance, is quite a charming name.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known many Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. No, the only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. I mean, we must be married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, yes. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you were not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject hasn't even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it fair to tell you, quite frankly in advance, that I am fully determined to accept you.
Oh, Gwendolyn.
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it. I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
But, darling, you are the only woman that I have ever loved in the whole world.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Earnest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter she could be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions I would like to put to you, Mr. Worthing, Whilst I make these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
The carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage!
Yes, Mama.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer to stand.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not on my list of eligible young men. Although I do have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact, on this. However, I am prepared to add your name, should your answers be that which a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I must admit that I do smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A gentleman should have an occupation. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I am of opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know, Mr. Worthing?
I am afraid that I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm very pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a great threat to the upper classes and probably result in violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
Land or investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a pleasure or a profit.
Well,
it gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up.
I do own a country house with some land attached. About 1,500 acres or so, but I don't depend on that for my yearly income. In fact, the poachers seem to make more out of it than I do.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Oh, that's a matter that can be cleared up another time. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl of Gwendolyn's simple, unspoiled nature could never be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I do own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to a Lady Bloxham. But I can get it back whenever I want, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Oh, she doesn't get out very much. She's considerably advanced in years.
Oh, that's no guarantee of respectability these days. What number, Belgrave Square?
149.
Oh, the unfashionable side. I thought there must be something. Still, we can soon alter that.
The fashion or the side?
Both if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I'm afraid that I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us. Or at least they come round in the evening. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I'm afraid that I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be considered to be a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some considerable wealth. Was he born into what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise through the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid that I really don't know, Lady Bracknell. I said that I had lost both my parents, but it would be closer to the truth to say that they had lost me. I don't know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew found me and gave me the name of Worthing, as he had a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with the first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
Handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell. It was a large, brown, leather handbag with handles on it. A rather ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what location did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, it was given to him in mistake for his own. It's on the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I must confess to feeling somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, which remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. I presume you do know what that particular movement led to. As for the location in which the handbag was found, the cloakroom at a railway station may serve to conceal a social indiscretion. I'm sure it has been used for such a purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
But what would you have me do, Lady Bracknell? You know that there is nothing in the world that I wouldn't do to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly recommend, Mr. Worthing, that you try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and that you make every effort to produce at least one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly do that. I can produce the handbag. It's in my apartment. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? Me? What could it possibly have to do with me? You surely cannot imagine that I, or Lord Bracknell, would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a railway station and form an alliance with a parcel. Good day to you, Mr. Worthing.
Good day to you! Oh, Algie, stop playing that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't need to tell me that Gwendolyn refused you. Oh, I know it's the way that she has. She's always refusing people. I think it's so ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we're already engaged. Her mother, though, is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon in my life. I don't really know what a gorgon is, but I'm sure that Lady Bracknell is one. She's like a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. Oh, I'm sorry, Algie. I shouldn't speak that way about your relations in front of you.
My dear fellow, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only reason I put up with them at all. Relations are simply a pack of tedious people who haven't the remotest knowledge about how to live or the smallest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that's absurd.
It isn't?
Well, I won't argue about it with you. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that is exactly what things were originally made for.
Oh, if I believed that, I would shoot myself. You don't think that there's any chance that Gwendolyn will become like her mother in about 150 years?
My dear fellow, all women become like their mother. That is their tragedy. If no man does, that's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased, and about as true as any observation of civilized life should be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. You can't go anywhere these days without running into a bunch of clever people. It's nearly becoming a public nuisance. I wish to goodness that we still had some fools left.
We have.
I should gladly like to meet them. What do they talk about?
And the fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, the truth is not something that you should tell a young, sweet, innocent girl. What strange ideas you have on how to behave to a woman.
Oh, the only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
That's absurd!
Well, what about your brother Ernest? What about your profligate brother Earnest?
Well, I believe that I shall kill him off by the end of the week. Cecily is becoming a little too much interested in him, and it's all becoming rather a bore. I shall say that he died in Paris, of apoplexy. That should do it. Lots of people die of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but that sort of thing is hereditary, my dear fellow. The sort of thing that runs in families. No, you had far better say, a severe chill.
Are you sure that a severe chill isn't hereditary?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest, to be carried off in Paris by a severe chill. That just about gets rid of him.
Yes, but you just said that Miss Cardew was becoming a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, no bother about that. Cecily isn't one of these silly romantic types. She has a capital appetite, likes to go on long walks, and never pays any attentions to her lessons.
I should certainly like to see Cecily.
I shall take great care that you never do. Cecily is excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolen that you have an excessively pretty ward, who is only just 18?
Oh, my dear Algy, one does not simply blurt these things out. No, Gwendolen and Cecily are sure to become fast friends. I would bet you that within half an hour after meeting one another, they will be addressing each other as sister.
Women only do that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear fellow, if we're to get a good table at Willis's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it's nearly 7?
It is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I've never known you when you weren't.
Look, what shall we do after dinner? We could go to the theatre.
Oh, no, I loathe listening to things.
Well, let us pop round to the club.
Oh, no, I hate talking.
Well, maybe we might trot round to the Empire Theatre at 10.
Oh, no, I can't stand looking at things. It's so silly.
But what shall we do?
Nothing.
Oh, it's awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind hard work if there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolen, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Now really, Gwendolen, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that. Ernest, I am afraid we shall never be married. From the expression of Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents pay any regard to what their children say to them nowadays. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Any influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But though she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she can ever say can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Oh, my darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deep fibers of my nature. Your Christian name holds an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There's a good postal service, I presume? It may be necessary to do something drastic. That would require serious consideration. I will write to you daily.
My darling.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
Thank you, I already have.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my old one?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Certainly, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane?
Certainly, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I probably shan't be back until Monday. You can put up all the dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I do hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
Oh, it never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
There goes a sensible, intellectual, beautiful girl. The only girl that I've ever cared for in all my life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all.
Bunbury. If you don't watch out, your friend Bunbury will get you into a very serious scrape one of these days.
I love scrapes. They're the only thing that are never serious.
What nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily, surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Moulton the gardener's duty than yours, especially at a time when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lessons.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German as he's leaving for town.
Oh, Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes I think he's so serious that he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanor is to be especially commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
Oh, I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here once in a while. We might have good influence over him in this prison. I know you most certainly would. You know geography and German and things of that kind influence a man very much.
No, I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure I would wish to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. Cecily, you must put away your diary. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
But I keep a diary in order that I might enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have not happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all 3-volume novels that Movies Library sends us.
Do slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I myself wrote one in earlier years.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so very much.
The good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems so very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
But I do see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are you this morning, Miss Prism? I trust you are well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think a short stroll in the park with you would do her much good, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have said nothing about a headache.
No, I know that, Miss Prism, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, not about my German lesson when the raptor came in.
I trust, Cecily, that you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I speak metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from leaves. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man's brother seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical illusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think that I will have a stroll with you after all, dear Doctor. I find that I have a headache, and a stroll might do it good.
Oh, with pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will study your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee, you may omit. It's somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Earnest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, apartment B4, the Albany, Piccadilly, London. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, he was most disappointed to hear that. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was most anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Pray, ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you had better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him. I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does!
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. Indeed, I believe that I am more than usually tall for my age. But you, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think of me as wicked.
Well, if you're not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be good and wicked and being really good all the time. Well, that would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course, I have been rather reckless.
Glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad. In my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, although I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
Yes, but it is much pleasanter to be here with you.
I don't understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
Oh, that is a great disappointment. You see, I'm obliged to take the first train back to town on Monday morning. There is a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Wouldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, you see, the appointment is in London.
Oh, well of course I know how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you had better wait until Uncle Jack returns. I know he wanted to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
About your emigrating. He has gone up to town to buy your outfit.
Oh, I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit at all. He has no taste in neckties.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh, well, the accounts I've received concerning Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world seems good enough to me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make it your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind me reforming myself this afternoon?
It was rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I shall. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
Well, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you, but might I have a buttonhole first? I never have an appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marechal Niel?
Oh no, I'd sooner have a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
Then they are a snare into which every sensible man would wish to be caught.
I don't think I would care to be caught by a sensible man. I don't think I would know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope, never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is not a man equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended upon. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing.
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope that you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother Ernest dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer my sincere condolence. At least you have the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many, many faults, but it is still a sad, sad blow.
Oh, very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No. He died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I have a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it would seem.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us is perfect. I myself am peculiarly subject to draughts. Will the internment take place here?
No. He seems to have expressed a desire to be buried abroad, in Paris.
In Paris? That hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. Ah, my sermon on the meaning of manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any situation, joyful, or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, days of humiliation, and festal days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the upper orders. The bishop who was present was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
Dr. Chasuble, you mentioned christenings, I believe. You do know how to christen. Well, I mean, of course, you are probably christening all the time.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there a particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child that I want christening. No, Dr. Chasuble, it is for myself.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already?
I don't remember a thing about it.
But have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have. But no, I mean, I would like to be christened, but I hope that it would not bother you in any way, or I hope that you don't think that I am too old.
Oh, not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Oh, you need have no apprehension. Sprinkling is all that is required, or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I thought I might trot around about 5, if that would suit you.
Oh, perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 other similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred recently in one of the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
I don't fancy being baptized or christened with babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will no longer intrude into a house of sorrow. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What appear to us to be bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, I am pleased to see you are back, but what horrid clothes you have got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
Oh, my child, my child.
Uncle Jack, Jack, do be nice. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you?
These are very joyful tidings.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return is peculiarly distressing.
My brother's in the dining room. I don't know what it all means. I mean, it's perfectly absurd. Good heavens.
Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you how sorry I am for all the trouble that I have given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand, are you?
Nothing shall induce me to take his hand. I think his coming here to be inexcusable. He perfectly knows well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit often. And surely there must be some good in a man who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking to you about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he has told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I won't have him talking to you about Bunbury or about anything else for that matter. I think that his coming here is perfectly disgraceful.
Well, I must admit that the faults are all on my side, but I must say that I find Brother John's coldness towards me peculiarly painful. I had expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Very well, but this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel so happy.
Algy, you young scoundrel! I won't have any Bunburying here.
I've put Mr. Ernest Spins into the room next to your own, sir. I suppose that's all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I unpacked it and put it into the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, 3 portmanteaus, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
Look, I'm terribly sorry. I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, call the dog cart. Mr. Earnest has just been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful lie you are, Jack. I've not been called back to town at all.
Oh, yes, you have.
Well, I didn't hear anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I have no doubt about that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk about Miss Cardew that way. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like the clothes you're wearing. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who's actually staying with you for a week in your house as a guest.
You are not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or as anything else. You have got to catch the 4:05 train back to town.
But I certainly won't leave while you are in mourning. That would be most unfriendly of me. If I was in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I should think it very unkind if you didn't. I call it grotesque.
Oh. Well, will you go if I change my clothes, sir?
Yes, if you're not too long about it. I never saw anyone take so long to dress with such little result.
Well, at least, it is better than always being overdressed the way you constantly are.
If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Algy, your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence here in my garden is utterly absurd. However, you have to catch the 4 or 5 train back to town, and I hope you have a very pleasant journey. This bun-burying hasn't worked out particularly well for you, has it?
Not worked out particularly well. I think it is a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her again to make arrangements for another bundary before I depart. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
No, Uncle Jack has gone to order the dog cart for me.
Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from anyone whom one has known for such a brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. But even a momentary separation from anyone whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merryman, for 5 minutes.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you. If I say quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
Your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Oh, do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh no, I couldn't possibly. It's simply a record of a very young girl's thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop there. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on, I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak clearly and fluently, and not cough. And besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
Oh, I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, devotedly, passionately, hopelessly? Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense at all now, does it?
Oh, Cecily.
Dog cart is waiting for you.
Tell it to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on until next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
Why, of course. Well, we have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Well, yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack admitted to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and very bad, we of course formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and this prison. And of course, one who is always talked about is always very attractive. I dare say it was foolish of me, Ernest, but I fell in love with you.
Darling. But when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you. Here under this dear old tree. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And here's the little bangle with the true lover's knot that I promised you always to wear.
Did I buy you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And here's the little box in which I keep all of your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily. I have never written you any letters.
Oh, you need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember all too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always, 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them.
Oh no, they would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote to me after I had broken off our engagement were so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I could hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Well, of course it was. On the 22nd of March. You can read the entry if you'd like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing. Cecily, I am very much hurt indeed to hear that you broke it off, particularly as the weather was so charming.
Well, it would hardly have been a very real engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
Oh, darling, what a perfect angel you are.
Oh, you dear romantic boy. Does your hair part naturally?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad to hear it.
But Cecily, you'll never break off our engagement again.
No, I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. And besides, there is still the question of your name.
Yes, yes, my name.
Well, you shouldn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone by the name of Ernest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not named Ernest.
But my dear child, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
What other name?
Oh, I don't know. Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
My own dear, sweet, loving little darling, I really don't see why you should object to a name like Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is a rather aristocratic name. More than half the chaps that get into the bankruptcy courts are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector hereabouts is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the practice of all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a very learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Then I must see him at once about a most important christening. I mean about some most important business. I won't be more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since the 14th of February, and I've only met you today for the first time, I feel it is rather hard that you should leave me for a period so long as half an hour. Could you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, so Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago, Miss.
Pray, ask Miss Fairfax to come here. Mr. Worthing should be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, Miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the great many elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. It seems so very forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew, what a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other for such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Well, then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
This may be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa is, I'm glad to say, entirely unknown. I think that is quite how it should be. The home seems to me to be the perfect sphere for man. Certainly once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate. And I do not like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views in education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Mother. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh, no, I live here.
Indeed. Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor, in fact, any relations.
Really?
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it's strange he never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How very secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I cannot help but say, though, that Cecily, the news does not inspire me with feelings of unmixed delight. Now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, and I have liked you ever since I met you, I cannot help but express the wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, pray do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, Cecily, to speak with perfect candor, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest is a strong and upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be to him as impossible as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character can be susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history supplies us with perfect examples of what I speak. In fact, if it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for some time.
Ah, that quite accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was quite almost anxious. It would have been terrible if a cloud of any kind had come across a friendship such as ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite certain it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
My dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make a secret of this to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I'm afraid there must be some mistake, Cecily. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The fact will appear in the Saturday Morning Post at the latest.
I'm afraid you are under some strange mistake. For Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Well, that is certainly very curious. For Ernest asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, please. I never travel without my diary. One should have something sensational to read in the train. I am sorry, Cecily, if it causes you any slight discomfort, but I am afraid that I have a prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dearest Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish engagement, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement the dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will never reproach him with it until after we are married.
Do you allude to me as an entanglement, Miss Cardew? You are presumptuous. On an occasion such as this, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dearest Gwendolyn. But when I see a spade, I call it a spade. This is no time for wearing this shallow mask of manners.
I'm glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious our social spheres have been widely different.
Are they tea as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes. Very many. From the top of one of the hills, quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, yes. Flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
I am always amazed that anyone manages to exist in the country. If anyone who is anyone does. The country always bores me to death.
That is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering very much from it just at present. Seems almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea. Sugar? No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and when I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the sweetness of my manner, Miss Cardew, and the gentleness of my disposition. But I warn you, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of another girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
I have distrusted you ever since I met you. I felt you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Gwendolyn, darling!
Ernest, my own Ernest. A moment, if I may. Will you tell me if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put that idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding. The man whose arm is at present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Oh!
Here's Ernest.
My
A
own
moment. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn.
Yes, to good heaven, to Gwendolyn. I mean to Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What on earth put that idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there must be some error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Oh! Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really Jack?
I could deny it. I could deny anything. But I must admit that my name is Jack. It has been Jack for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet, wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, won't you?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's one question I would like to be able to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where he is at present.
Cecily, Gwendolyn, it pains me greatly to be forced to speak the truth. I have never been forced into such a painful position in all my life, and I'm really quite unused to it. But I must say quite candidly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I have never had a brother, and I do not ever plan on having a brother at any time in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
No brother of any kind?
None. Not even of any kind.
It appears, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young lady to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly dare to venture after us there.
No, men are so cowardly. Aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you would call bunburying, I suppose? Yes! But what a perfectly wonderful bunbury it is! It's the most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life. Well, you have no right to bunbury here.
Oh, don't be so absurd. One has the right to bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious bunburyist knows that.
Serious bunburyist? Good heavens.
Well, one has to be serious about something if one wishes any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about bunburying. What on earth you are serious about, I haven't the smallest idea. About everything, I should fancy. Jack, you have such an absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the one small satisfaction I can gain from all of this is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. Won't be able to take as many trips down country, shall you, Algie? And probably a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear up to London as frequently as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
I just wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. I love her.
Well, I just wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, I don't think there's very much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's own business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there calmly eating muffins while we are in this horrible trouble I can't make out. Seems to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I cannot eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It's the only way to eat them.
I think eating muffins at all, under the circumstances, is quite inexcusable.
Well, when I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in very great trouble, as anyone that knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy, Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, you needn't eat them all in that greedy way.
No, look, I do wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
I suppose that a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That is quite a different thing.
Yes, that's as may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algy, why don't you go?
Well, look, you cannot ask me to go without giving me some dinner. That's perfectly absurd. I never go without my dinner. Nobody ever does, except vegetarians and people like that. And besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 6:15 under the name of Earnest.
Oh, my dear boy, the sooner you forget that nonsense, the better. I myself have made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:30. And I will naturally take the name Ernest. Gwendolyn would want it. We can't both be christened Ernest. That would be absurd. Besides, there is no evidence to suggest that I have ever been christened before. I think that it is extremely probable I never was, and Dr. Chasuble agrees with me. You, on the other hand, have been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the main thing.
Quite so. So I know that my constitution can stand it. If you are not sure about your ever having been christened before, I must say it seems rather dangerous to venture upon it now. It may make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you yourself said that a severe chill wasn't hereditary.
Oh, it usedn't to be, I know. But yes, it is now. Science is always making marvellous improvements.
What nonsense! You are always talking nonsense.
Oh, Jack, look, don't get at the muffins again. There are only 2 left, and I told you, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Then why on earth do you allow tea cake to be served up to your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality.
Algy, I have already asked you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
Well, I haven't quite finished my tea. And besides, there is still 1 muffin left.
The fact that they did not follow us at once into the house, as anyone else would have done, seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They're eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
But I haven't got a cough.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
They're approaching us. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it is the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to be producing an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we shall not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing? I have something very particular to say to you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly sounds to be a satisfactory answer, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his reply.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for having pretended to have a brother? Was it so that you could come up to town as often as possible to see me?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have grave doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their answers certainly sound satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That sounds to me to have a stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone seems to inspire one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes, I mean no.
True, there are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. But which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we both not speak at the same time?
An admirable idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier, that is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we're going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes. Where matters of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are!
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
Darling!
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn, what does this mean?
Merely that I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here, sit down. Sit down immediately. Any hesitation is a sign of mental decay in the young, physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I followed her by a luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am glad to say, under the impression that she is attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence on a permanent income of thought. I do not intend to undeceive you. Indeed, I have never undeceived you on any subject. I would consider it wrong, but you must understand that no further communication must take place between yourself and my daughter. It must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, I am, as on all points, firm.
But, Lady Bracknell, Gwendolyn and I are engaged to be married.
You are no such thing, sir. And now, as for Algernon. Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
may I ask if this is the house in which your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, lives?
Oh no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been very sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. Poor Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury? Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of some revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If he was, then he is well punished for his morbidity.
My dear Aunt Augusta, I mean that Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
He seems to have a lot of confidence in the opinions of his physicians. However, I am glad that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we are finally rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That, Lady Bracknell, is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know if there is something peculiarly exciting about the air of this particular partnership, but the number of engagements that go on seem to me to be considerably above the average that statistics have set down for our guidance. However, I think a preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, may I ask, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely seek information, as until yesterday I was totally unaware that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, southwest London, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Fifeshire, Woolton, North Britain.
Oh. Well, that does not sound unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. However, what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have the court guides over here, Lady Bracknell, open to your inspection.
Oh, I've known many a strange error in that particular publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Oh, Markby. Oh, a very highest position in their profession. Indeed, I am told that one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
Very good, Lady Bracknell. I also have certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, vaccination, registration, certification, and the measles, both the English and the German variety.
Oh, and I've crowded with incident, I see, but perhaps a little too exciting for a young girl. I'm not myself in favour of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time for our departure is nigh. We do not have a moment to lose. As a matter of form, though, Mr. Worthing, I should just ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Only about £130,000 in the funds. That is all, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you. I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000, and in the funds. Miss Cardew really is a most attractive young lady now. So few girls of today have any of the solid qualities, any of the qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of services. Come over here, dear. Oh, pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks as though nature might have left it that way. Between soon to that, a thoroughly experienced French maid can produce a marvellous result in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lancing. About 6 months, her own husband didn't know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn around, dear. No, your side view is what I... Ah, yes, just as I thought. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. It's all down high at the moment. Algernon,
Yes,
there are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully in society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Now, dear child, you do realize that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I do not believe in mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed for a moment of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose then I shall give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
You may kiss me, Cecily,
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
and you may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I think the marriage should take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Speaking frankly, I do not believe in long engagements. They give people a chance to find out too much about each other's characters. Never a good idea before marriage, I think.
Pray excuse me for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and I decline to give my consent.
On what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I might even say ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. More than one desire.
It pains me to speak quite frankly to you about your nephew, Lady Bracknell, but I do not trust his moral character. I believe him to be untruthful.
Impossible. My nephew Algernon. He studied at Oxford.
There can be no doubt about the matter. This afternoon, when I was on an important trip to London on a matter of romance, your nephew gained admission to my house under the pretense of being my brother. He subsequently drank an entire pint bottle, I have been informed by my butler, of my Pierre Jouet Brut 89, wine I was specially reserving for myself. He succeeded that afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was aware from the start that I do not have a brother, that I have never had a brother, and that I have not even the intention of ever having a brother in the future, not even of any kind. He knew this as I informed him of it yesterday.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's behavior towards you.
That is extremely generous of you, Lady Bracknell, but I'm afraid that my position is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come over here, dear. Sit down. How old are you?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I attend evening parties.
No, you're very wise to make some slight alteration. No woman should ever be totally honest about her age. It looks so calculating. So, 18, but admitting to 20. So it will not be very long then before you are of age and free of tutelage. In which case, I don't think that the permission is really very much of an importance after all. Your guardian's permission.
Pray, excuse me for interrupting you yet again, Lady Bracknell, but according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age until she is 35.
That does not seem a grave objection to me. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the highest birth who have been 35 for years. Lady Dumbleton is a case in point. To my own knowledge, she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40, many years ago now. And I see no reason why our Cecily shouldn't be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is now. There will be a large accumulation of property, Algernon.
Algie, could you wait for me until I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I couldn't wait that long. I hate waiting, even 5 minutes for anybody. It makes me rather cross. I know I'm not always punctual myself, but I do require punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she's 35, a remark which I must say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature. Could you please think of changing your decision?
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment that you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You know perfectly well that that is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I have planned for Gwendolen. Come, Gwendolen, we have missed 5, if not 6 trains already. To miss any more may provoke comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
Christening, sir? Is that not a bit premature?
Both of these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age? The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be most displeased if he thought that was the way you were wasting your time and your money.
Am I to understand, then, that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I'm afraid that as things now stand, Dr. Chasuble, it wouldn't be of much practical value to either of us.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. They savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, seeing as your mood is peculiarly secular, I shall return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I am on my way to join her.
A moment of your time, please. This could prove of great importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism has, for the last 3 years, been Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and constant companion.
Despite what I hear of her, I must see her. Have her sent for at once.
As she approaches, she is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting there for you for an hour and 3/4.
Prism? Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, after an elaborate investigation by the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight standing alone in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I must admit with shame that I do not know. Well, I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, the day which will be forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I also had with me an old but somewhat capacious handbag in which I intended to place a manuscript of a work of fiction I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I will never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But Miss Prism, where did you place the handbag?
Oh, do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, it is of the utmost importance to me. I must know where you placed that handbag that contained that infant.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the busiest railway stations in London.
But what station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my apartment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait here for you all my life.
Greetings, Lady Bracknell.
I did not imagine, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high breeding, this kind of thing is not supposed to happen. Coincidences do not, they're not the thing. They're definitely not the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
Awful noise. It sounds as if he's having an argument. I hate arguments. They're always so vulgar and they're often convincing.
It has stopped now.
Oh, I wish you would reach some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. Oh, I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, examine this handbag carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one depends on your answer.
Well, I think it looks like mine. Well, oh yes, there is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. And yes, there is the stain in the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred in Leamington. And there on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby that you placed within it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried!
Unmarried? Well, this is no doubt a very serious blow, but who has the right to cast a stone at one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one rule for women and another for men? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there has been some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Oh. Lady Bracknell, I hate to appear inquisitive, but would you please inform me of who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you is not altogether going to please you. You are the child of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and therefore Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? Then I do have a brother! I always knew that I had a brother! Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Ms. Prism, my unfortunate brother. Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. Oh, Algie, you young scoundrel, you will have to treat me with more respect in the future. You've never acted to me like a brother in all your life.
Well, not until today, old boy, I'll admit. I did my best, however, though I was out of practice.
My own one. But what on are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Oh, yes, I guess we had better deal with that. Your position on my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolyn.
Then the matter had better be settled at once. Aunt Augusta, had I been christened before being placed in the handbag?
Every luxury money could buy, including christening, had been lavished upon you by your doting parents.
Then I had been christened. Now, what name was I christened with? Let me know the worst.
Well, naturally, being the eldest son, you were christened after your father.
Yes. But what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present time recall the general's name. I know he had one. He was eccentric, I know, but that was in later life. Most of it was due to the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion and things of that sort.
Algie, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
But his name must be on the military lists of the time. Would they not be, Lady Bracknell?
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. Yes, his name will appear in military directories of the time.
I have the military directories of the last 40 years over here on this shelf. I should have made these records my constant study over the last few years. Let's see now. M, Generals, Malum, Maxbaum, Magley. What ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobes, Moncrief, Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General, 1869, Christian names, Earnest John. Then I am earnest after all. I mean, I am naturally earnest.
Oh, yes, I remember now that the general's name was Ernest. I knew there was some reason I disliked the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Imagine, Gwendolyn, what it must be like for a man to learn that he's been telling the truth his entire life. Can you ever forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
Oh, my own one.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last!
Gwendolyn, at last.
My nephew, you seem to be showing signs of frivolity.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, for the first time in my life, I now realize the vital importance of being earnest.